You're a fraud.
You're a liberal hack.
Hello, fans. Welcome back to The Hack and the Fraud. We've returned from a long layoff. My name is Ryan. I'm joined by Nick once again.
Leo today, actually.
Oh, good. My favorite offsider to discuss film, Leonardo DiCaprio. Okay, and today, so we're coming back. We're doing a remote.
We had a massive fight.
We did years ago.
Massive fight, and now it's repaired. So we're gonna give it a shot. Give this friendship a go again.
Yeah. Hopefully, Nick can not fuck it up this time.
I moved. It's not a great start.
No, it's kind of a weird joke to have. Anyway, we're back for The Hack and the Fraud. We're not going to do a movie review for our first episode back. I don't even know if we'll do movie reviews. We're sort of going in a different direction. Today, we're doing a big deep dive on one of our favorite directors, one of the world's favorite directors.
Russia-Ukraine conflict. No?
No. Oh, well, we could do. I think that obviously ties into what we're talking about, the Russia-Ukraine conflict and Martin Scorsese. I can see the parallels. So we're going to do Martin Scorsese. He's an Italian-American content creator. He's done
Italian. Okay.
Yeah, and he's done lots of good films. But I guess what we'll start off with is do you want to talk about maybe your favorite Scorsese film, or perhaps just generally just talk about how you feel about Scorsese to begin, or how we feel about Scorsese? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that all ties in. So let's talk about you go first. Go your favorite Scorsese, and then obviously it's talking about what you love about him as a director. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's the thing with whatever the favorite is. It draws out what it is you love about him. So for me, I'm actually pretty sure my favorite is his latest film, The Irishman, where he has reached the zenith of his filmmaking. Things about The Irishman that I like are, well, one of the things that I like in art films is kind of the reality, when you can draw reality into the filmmaking. I think The Irishman is obviously a deeply personal kind of film for Marty and Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci and even Harvey Keitel. Everybody involved in it it seems it could work as the capstone to Scorsese's career. I'm glad that he's still making more movies, unlike some other directors, but The Irishman, for me, it encapsulates so much of Scorsese's career, his relationships with actors, and not just like his career. Like, obviously, it is a mafia movie, and it's got some of his favorite starring partners in it. But it's not just that it's a mafia movie, because it's about life and regret, and growing old and moving past these mythologies, but also being part of those mythologies as you're growing up and kind of coming to what the meaning is at the end of it. Because it really is an existential film. Like, if it didn't have, like, it's 3.5 hours, obviously some people have complained about the 3.5 hours.
That's why I haven't watched it.
Well, they've got it in the mini-series format now, so you could, like, with your TikTok brain. Yeah.
I want you to call out the directors who aren't directing anymore. I just want you to name and shame. So who shouldn't be
directing?
Who shouldn't be directing?
Yeah, well, I'm saying Scorsese, he's still got more coming down the pipeline. He's 80 years old. I'm still excited for him compared to. Okay, so the guy
Ridley Scott.
No, not really Scott. I'm always fine because he's
Tony Scott.
Yeah, he's one who should be still making movies.
No, he's dead. It's hard.
I know, but who I was thinking of was actually Tarantino. Because
he shouldn't be making movies.
I think he's right. I think he's kind of done. I think I'm like, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is also probably his best movie and acts in a similar way.
Why should he stop?
Well, I think
it's actually my favorite. I think it's his best film, and I love.
I agree, but we're doing a Tarantino episode.
I know.
So we're on.
It's so weird that you think he shouldn't be directing anymore.
I think he
still has.
Like, we'll go into this later, but I think like his films kind of are losing their value. They're not timeless in a way that Scorsese movies feel time. I mean, Scorsese has some duds. He's done more movies. But Tarantino, who allegedly has this 10 film work of art, or like 10 film, like what's the word for like a career, 10 film career, that's just like this one piece of work, and that's
Portfolio.
thank you. That's supposed to be perfect. Like it has some middling films. Some of the films don't feel as important as they did at the time, but it doesn't look. That's Tarantino. We can talk about Tarantino later. I think he's right in that he should do 10 and call it quits. But
I'm very excited to have that conversation because because I don't think he's put out a dud. Okay, we'll go back to Marty though. We'll go back
to Marty. Yeah.
Supposed to talk
The Irishman, all those elements of Marty's actual life, plus life in general. I think it's his most mature work. I think it's his most spiritual. It is existential. He's asking himself, what was the meaning of my life, being with these guys and working on these kind of movies. Was it worth it? What were the things that I was saying over my whole career? And then, like that final act where they're old, they're in prison, everybody's dying. Like I loved that. And it means so much more coming from a guy who is 80 years old, whose friends are 80 years old, who's reaching that end point of his life. And that's what the movie is about. And so I found it really fascinating. And also, furthermore, he's just like at the peak of his craftsmanship of filmmaking. I mean, I think you generally get better with every piece of work that you produce, and he's not lost his steps mentally at all. Compare him to Joe Biden or whatever as another 80-year-old. Marty is completely as sharp as ever. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, directing the bloody the media narrative.
Here we go. That's a segue into Ukraine, Russia, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so, The Irishman is my favorite Martin Scorsese movie. And what do you think about that pick?
That's the issue with that pick is that I haven't seen it, so I can't really.
Are you kidding? Have you actually not seen The Irishman?
I honestly haven't seen it.
How are we doing a Martin Scorsese?
It's my one job to see Martin Scorsese films.
It's so good.
I didn't think you were going to pick that one.
Well, I wasn't going to pick that. Anyway.
But so my impression, having not watched it, is just the de-aging scenes, and it's just, you know how much I hate that, and so it's very hard for me to ever sit down and want to watch this film. I never had that kind of real, like for example, Killers of a Flower Moon. I saw the trailer for that. There's no chance I'm missing that film. There's no chance. Irishman came out. I saw the trailers, and I was just like, it just didn't really sell me. And I know you said it's the best, and I do have to see it. I'm probably compelled to now, but I just, I never really sort of got the sort of shove that Marty normally can sell. Like I went to see Silence, and I sort of had a shove to go see that in terms of it looked really interesting. So that's just, I don't know, maybe I just thought it was too similar to his previous works, like his like you said, that is Italian American inspired mafia film, and I was just like, is it going to show me something new? Obviously, you've said it has. So I can't come with an opinion. It's not fair.
No, it's good.
I haven't even seen it.
No, it's good because like the new listeners can know who the hack and who the fraud is. So.
Yeah, well, what is that more of a hack or a fraud?
That's a fraud. It's a fraud because you haven't seen it. Yeah, I have a hack opinion on it. Is that it's really good?
Yeah, right. Because you basically just Control C, Control V, whatever. Goodfellas. Your opinion on Goodfellas was.
All right, so we've got my favorite movie out of the way. What's your favorite of the ones you've seen?
Yeah, I've seen. I've seen Cape Fear. I don't know if you've seen that.
No. All right, so I should say. Okay, we should let the audience.
Okay, no,
know.
I'm kidding.
I haven't seen Cape Fear, and I haven't seen New York, New York. Those are the two from the filmography that I haven't seen.
That's pretty good. I haven't seen a lot more, so you've done very well. Now mine is an obvious one. It's Shutter Island.
Fuck off.
Or as you want to call it, Shutter Island. Now, I actually do love that film,
Island.
so I'm looking forward to talking about that because I know you hate it. You think it's his weakest.
Maybe not. I actually might have a new weakest now, but go on.
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, mine's The Departed. It's
Oh
one
yeah.
of my very skinny tens in terms of I don't have a large list of 10 out of 10 films. It's certainly up there, like Goodfellas, Casino, Wolf of Wall Street are up there very much so. And on its day, good Wolf of Wall Street can certainly be in the top. But
Agreed.
Departed, I know it's a remake, and I know, but it's just to me everything I love about Marty coming from obviously a very much more casual fan perspective, so I can't really technically say why it's a great film, but it's an ensemble cast. You got everyone, you got Mark Wahlberg, you got Leo, you got Matt Damon, you got Alec Baldwin, and they're all swinging for the fences with their performances, and I really love it. I think it's Martin Sheen too,
Jack Nicholson. I
and
mean,
Jack Nicholson. God, he's the one that got the Oscar out of it.
he's the
So
guy.
like,
Yeah.
he's the guy. Yeah. But there's a great actually interview with Jack Nicholson, and he talks about how he helped write his character with Martin Scorsese in terms of adding in some scenes to make him a bit more, I
Oh
want to
yeah.
say,
I think I read.
menacing.
Mm.
It's really interesting. I'd certainly watch that if you can. But he basically adds a lot of, I suppose, I think there's one where he's in The Departed. He's shooting a couple. You remember that? There's a man and a woman,
Yeah.
and then he shoots the woman, and then he laughs and goes, "Look how she fell. She
Yeah,
fell
that's
for
right.
me."
Yeah, Jack Nicholson
That
came up
was
with that
Jack
line.
Nicholson came up with that line, and the entire sort of way that he essentially executed those two. He sort of wrote that for Marty in a way that was a bit more menacing than it was originally in the screenplay.
Oh
So
yeah, that's such a fucked up thing to say when you kill a
yeah,
woman.
no, seriously, that's all.
She
What's
felt
the most
funny.
fucked up thing you can say? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it just, yeah. So that to me, yeah, basically all the actors I think were on the same page in terms of which direction this film needs to go. Probably because it's a remake,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's a very good remake. It's a very, very good one. And I've seen Internal Affairs too, which is very good. But there's just something I think for me, The Departed really, really suits my jam.
Yeah, well,
And that's about it.
I read the Roger Ebert review on The Departed, and he had much the same thoughts as you, where even though it's a remake, it's elevated, it's changed completely. And look, it
Yeah.
does have I do obviously enjoy the Boston element of it. Just I like Boston crime films like The Town and
Yeah.
stuff. I always did love the movie. I watched Infernal Affairs. I think it's Infernal Affairs recently.
Is it
Uh,
Infernal?
I think it is. Yeah, I'm not
Oh,
100%
okay.
on that, but I think it's actually called it. Yeah. But I watched that recently, and it was so good that it kind of made The Departed not as good in a way, just because I'm like, okay, some of the best bits of The Departed have come lifted straight from the original. But watching The Departed in a vacuum, I mean, before I had seen the original, yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree on any point you make. Yeah, the cast is sublime. It's Marty at his, or yeah, most Marty. It's rock pop
Mm.
songs. It's fast frenetic camera movements. Yeah, it doesn't stop the entire time. Yeah, and it's bloody in the way that I was watching
Yeah.
Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which is like a comedy drama from the 70s that Scorsese did. And even in this like PG-13 comedy drama, the husband, when he dies in a truck accident, has like a bit of glass shoved through his face, and like even in this, yeah. So I mean,
They got
Scorsese,
away with it.
yeah, and yeah, all right, Departed. That's a fair pick. I'm not gonna question that one
Yeah,
too.
just yeah, because I did the same as you. I sort of I watched let's call it Infernal Affairs. I hope you're right about that because now we look stupid if we've just corrected ourselves with an incorrect
While
thing.
you talk, I'll just do a wiki.
Just do it. I'll check your face. You'd be like, oh no, it's not Infernal Affairs.
No,
It's
it's Infernal.
fine.
It is Infernal. It's a pun.
Okay, all right. I watched. Okay, it's a pun. It's a pun. Well, there we go. We all know about pun movie titles. I don't know. Does it work?
That's
Okay.
a good
Anyway, no, I
question.
watched. I watched that. I watched that and after as well, and I weirdly didn't have the same. I suppose takeaway as you in terms of I was sort of saying this is great that there was another version of this film because I normally hate remakes. You know that
Mm,
I hate sort of ill-timed sequels. I think this was an artistic choice that was
mm.
sound to me. I can't explain why.
No, I totally
but,
get that. Like taking it from like Hong Kong, and I was getting into like Hong Kong crime cinema at the time, but like completely reinventing it. That's what you should do with a remake. Is like take it to a completely different place. Yeah, so it works. Like it totally works.
While that's also still a very good film, I didn't think it took away from the original Departed. And I'll quickly have a little snap at this. What the different time, like, so I felt exactly like you did when I was watching Black Swan, having not watched Black Swan before. I know it's not Marty, but watching that after Whiplash, for example. So no, seriously, I just felt that the structure was so similar that
between Black Swan and Whiplash.
And like a conversation for another time.
We
can do a Darren Aronofsky, because I mean,
true. We'll do a Darren. Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll go least favorite Scorsese. Right. Time to be a bit critical of the old maestro, because that's the beauty of art. Sometimes you take a big swing and you miss. And Scorsese's not afraid to be, or at least for a time, wasn't afraid to kind of step into the, blockbuster Hollywood director for hire, just kind of like get given a script and do a big. And Cape Fear was one of those, which allegedly I haven't seen. The Color of Money very much was a director for hire kind of gig.
That makes sense, because when I watched Cape Fear, I told you I had no idea it was Scorsese. It does not have his stamp on that film, if it makes sense. It's out of all the Scorsese films I've watched, I was most surprised. I enjoyed it, but it's not his flavor. So it was a bit more. Sure. So it must be the same as Color of Money, which I haven't seen. So.
Yeah, when you do know that it is Scorsese going into it, you can see those little flourishes of Scorsese. It's like he is such a singular artist that he inevitably pops through in all his work. But it obviously has greater and lesser influence. But okay, so my least favorite Martin Scorsese. Actually, do you have one off the top? I might have to have a think. Do you have one off the top of your head, or I probably should have prepared?
Well, I'd say use this platform now to rip into Shutter Island if you really want to, because I'm gonna combat that. I don't think it's weak.
I've only watched Shutter Island when it came out as well. I know I hate it, and I haven't watched it since. And I remember the twist and everything. I didn't really. I think I just don't like being tricked. All right, but my least favorite. Scorsese might be. I'm thinking. It's a toss up between The Color of Money and Kundun. The Color of Money is the Tom Cruise and Paul Newman pool hustle movie. And it's Tom Cruise in a young role, which is interesting. Just seeing Tom Cruise come up against Paul Newman when Tom Cruise is kind of breaking into the superstar. It is that classic, like Robert Redford, Brad Pitt, like passing of the torch kind of thing to the next guy. And Newman's great in it as well. I'm pretty sure he was at least nominated for an Oscar for it.
This sounds like a movie that's really kind of, because Tom Cruise, I think his best stuff was his early stuff. I'll be honest,
probably.
And that's up until 2000s, where he wasn't playing Tom Cruise every single movie.
Yeah,
but I haven't seen this one.
Yeah, but by the movie itself is just kind of, and it's not interesting. It's not. It doesn't have the Scorsese flavor. It is just a script that he was given. It's a sequel to a movie from the 50s, so it's like a 30-year later sequel where Paul Newman is renewing his character for. I didn't see the original. So it was kind of like a reboot remake thing. But
it's nice to know they did it back then too.
Yeah, that's right.
The old 30-year sequels.
Creatively bankrupt Scorsese period. It didn't have enough Scorsese touch. It just felt like a regular old movie. So and just not very interesting. Like Scorsese does his best with the pool scenes and stuff, and there are some great Scorsese shots, but look, overall I just was kind of bored by it and not interested. So I mean, it's not the worst, but Kundun was probably more. I watched Kundun this week, and it's about the Dalai Lama as a child and then as a young man. But it just, I've mentioned this on Twitter, but it feels like Scorsese is completely out of his depth. It's not interesting in the way that his other religious works are interesting, because they're all Catholic works and he's Catholic, so they they have much more meaning to them just inherently. Kundun is kind of about Buddhism and the Dalai Lama, but it comes from like a very like late 90s free Tibet kind of view of Tibet, the Dalai Lama, and China. And it kind of does play pretty much exclusively as like anti-communist propaganda, and it's just boring as fuck. The kid who plays the Dalai Lama is like the nephew of the actual Dalai Lama, and is just like a horrible, horrible lead for a movie. Just like one of the worst performances I've ever seen. Just yeah, boring, dull, long, overextended, has nothing to say. It's just like a horrible script written by somebody that Scorsese never worked with before and never again. So it's just kind of one of those director for hire movies. I'm sure he is interested in Buddhism and that part of the world and wanted to make, like a good movie about it, but it just is pretty horrible movie that doesn't really serve a purpose. Doesn't give me a deeper insight into the Dalai Lama. Doesn't give me an insight into Buddhism at all. Um, doesn't give me an insight into like world affairs because it is like a historical movie as well, charting from like the 30s through the 50s and stuff. Yeah, it's better than 7 Years in Tibet, but also that's not a high standard to reach. So yeah, it's a disappointment from Marty because it's kind of in between two good movies as well, Casino and Bringing Out the Dead. And I just don't know what compelled him really to make Kundun. And I had tried to look it up a bit, but I haven't really seen him talk about it since. So it just kind of feels like maybe it was one of those, oh yeah, I'm being cultural in the like a white 90s kind of
one for them.
Yeah, I don't know. Wasn't good. So those are my two really. And he's made some mid movies outside of that, like Boxcar Bertha was all right. His first movie, Who's That Knocking at My Door, has lots of promise, but is it's until Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore in 1974, I think, that he makes his first great movie. And then goes on a good run in the 80s and early 90s. Bit of a dip in the 2000s, obviously. It's funny that my most disliked Scorsese movie isn't a Leonardo movie, but
yeah, very funny that.
Overall, like he's still like 80% of his movies are at least good, So, what's your least favorite?
80% isn't that great a number when you think of it, but like to be at least good. I think it's higher. I think there might have been some, like The Color of Money is at least good. Like surely you didn't enjoy that
it
at
is.
all.
Yeah, Kundun is bad, but Color of Money is good. So.
The way you described them both, one sounded like something I kind of want to watch, and the other one was like, 100%. Especially after that bloody bus scene from a month ago with the Dalai Lama.
Oh yeah,
all-time low publicity.
His stocks are really
yeah, his stocks are down. Look, mine is I've had a good think about it, and I had one in mind, but I don't think I'll go that because I think it's a bit unfair because I did enjoy it. But the thing is, I've just kind of not really delved into his deeper movie. In terms of, I haven't seen anything that's been really bad by him, and I've sort of made a choice not to. If it hasn't got a great review by Marty, I haven't been like, I'm not going to see it. I didn't even see Irishman.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but I did see this one, and I didn't enjoy it. And I actually do think it's not a great film, and I think I can maybe back that up.
Justify
so I didn't like Hugo. Justify it. I didn't
right.
like Hugo.
Go on.
Hugo, I know you probably liked it.
Yeah, I did.
I watched Hugo. I watched Hugo at the time. I haven't watched it since. There's no.
Did you see it in 3D?
Since. See, that's the sort of question that just makes me roll my eyes. Like, isn't that's such an indictment on the film? As like, it was
it was designed for
3D.
It wasn't just.
It was designed for 3D.
Designed for 3D. Scorsese's always embraced new technologies, and he filmed it in 3D. It was one of the only.
Should have known better
at the time. Avatar and Hugo. Better. Anyway,
he should have known much better, and it was just. Okay, so at its core, what is it? Hugo is Marty's attempt at a children's film. Now, please go and ask any kid if they liked or even watched this film. I just don't think anyone did. I think it was like a pretend kids film, but really it's for like the late teenagers, or precocious teens
Mm.
and 20-year-olds to sort of say, hey, yeah, this is a pretty good kids film. But it's like, yeah, it's for you, dude. It's not for kids
Yeah.
at all. Like,
It's filled
kids
with
aren't going to
like
enjoy this.
movie references from the 30s and stuff. Like it's
Yeah,
got
like
yeah,
what?
yeah.
How are they going to enjoy that? What the hell? Like it's for a particular child that's like a films,
Yeah.
student who's like, I know what I want to be. I'm 12, which is never
Yeah.
like at 12. I don't know what I want to be, a footy player. Still do.
Do you think it's like the Fablemans maybe in that way? I haven't seen the Fablemans.
Me too.
All right,
So
let's
I
not talk about it.
can't- No, so Hugo for me, and so knowing that it wasn't really for the right audience, it's like it was honestly dressed up and advertised as a kids film.
Mm,
Hit that mark, but didn't hit the mark for me too. Like I was sort of never really entertained. I was looking at my watch or my phone. Don't have a watch, unfortunately. I really wanted to sell that I had a watch, but I don't. The whole time watching it, it just sort of never really. I mean, the actors are good in it, right? Like you've got I
Sasha.
think it's Asa Butterfield, and you got Sacha Baron Cohen, who aren't bad. They sort of try to ham up their performances a bit, like Sacha Baron Cohen from Les Mis, if it makes sense. So they try to
Mm.
but it's just not interesting. None of it was interesting for me. Like, I mean, do you have to be interested in 1930 cinema to really get this film? And I kind of lean towards, yeah, maybe you do. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
such a
right.
small percentage of cinema, because it's not like it's so Whiplash, for example. We talked about that before. I love that film. Or loved that film, but I'm not into jazz drumming,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it doesn't sell this sort of magic of cinema to the casual audience
Well, to be
at
honest,
all.
I'd always dislike the whole making a movie about cinema kind of thing as well. Like, I mean, fucking
Yeah,
Mank. I fucking hated Mank.
yeah. It's honestly
Horrible.
kind of reminded me of Mank a little bit.
Yeah,
One
yeah,
time it was kind of good, was Argo, but I say kind of good. Obviously won an Oscar because it's like, oh, Hollywood's the hero. But I mean,
yeah.
like it was
But that was fun.
entertaining
Yeah,
because it was fun, right? Like I mean,
yeah, yeah,
I've watched it a couple of times and enjoyed it. I just obviously don't think it was the film of the year. Anyway, that's it. 10 minutes remaining.
yeah. All right, so we've got through our favorite Scorsese, our least favorite Scorsese, and now I guess it's free chat. This is free chat time where we
Alright.
could talk about just generally what we like about Scorsese. So I'm missing two of his movies. How much? And a lot of those I've watched recently. I've been trying
You
to
keep
catch up.
bringing that up like
Yeah.
it's a race.
And how many
It's not a
have you?
race.
Just to get a perspective, because like some of his earlier movies are really interesting. Okay, so like I watched Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore yesterday, and that's awesome and just like so unscorsese like. It's like a comedy drama about a recently widowed woman and her precocious 12-year-old son who like travel across the south of America as she pursues like her dream of being a singer. But it's like there's a beautiful American tale, particularly of the 70s. Like everybody's
I've
working
watched
hard.
the I've watched the sequel. I haven't watched that one though.
Still Alice.
Yeah, still Alice.
Okay. That was
That's a
a really
sad
sad sequel,
sequel.
yeah.
I didn't know she was a singer though, but that's interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, that's like it's opened up like kind of like a new daughter of Scorsese for me. And I think like a lot of his earlier movies have done that. And it's really interesting to watch his trajectory over time as he goes from like, the young director who is still doing studio movies and stuff, to making some of the best movies of all time. And I think Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore is his first great movie. And it comes just before Taxi Driver, and they're quite similar in the way that they are like intense character studies, but done in completely different ways. So my favorite era of Scorsese might even be like his later stage career. Like I do love Wolf of Wall Street, Silence, and Irishman. Those are like what a banger last three movies he's done. Killers of the Flower Moon, if that is good as well. You can say that 10-year run from Wolf of Wall Street, it could arguably be his best 10-year run, although you do have like Goodfellas and Casino and The Age of Innocence and Bringing Out the Dead all coming out in the 90s. Last Temptation is one of my big favorites. So what's your underappreciated Scorsese? Like you think is one that
Film.
that deserves more love?
That's a good one. I mean, because we haven't even brought up Gangs of New York, and I know that's definitely not underappreciated. I think that's obviously a lot of. You didn't like it?
No,
Oh, there we
no.
go. This might be good. So, Gangs of New York was fantastic. Is Daniel Day
Nah.
Lewis at his
Ah,
absolute peak in
yeah,
terms of like that?
Daniel's
I
great.
love his character.
Daniel's
Leo's
great.
well, it's got the weakest in the film is not Leo, it's Cameron Diaz. Like
Oh,
Cameron
for
Diaz
sure. But
sucks.
she's
Um,
like, it's not even the actors though. It's like it feels. When did it come out?
Seriously, it feels like the actors. I
2002.
mean, she
It's
lets it down. The film as it is well. Okay, this is a good one. This is
uh,
underappreciated. Gangs of New York is
it's
brilliant. It's
over.
a
It's
great film.
bad. It's like stop,
No,
but it's not good.
you should have
It's like it's
definitely.
2002. It's got like it's a historical drama, but with like an early 2000s filmmaking brain. And by early 2000s filmmaking brain, I'm trying to. It's kind of like the Bourne Identity and there's various heist movies with like the camera's flying all over the place, the music is weird, and it's overexposed. There's like it's always got kind of like a Gaussian blur to it. The film just doesn't look good. It looks like a gross early 2000s movie, which takes away from the historical drama aspect of it. I just think the style is too atonal, the style and the substance of the movie. And so the whole time I'm not really being drawn into the actual story and the historicity of it. Um, and yeah, I mean Daniel's
Well,
fine,
your
but
mate Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 out of 4. So you
well, as I've
obviously
grown,
disagree with.
we've separated somewhat. Okay, but you go defend it.
Yeah, no, I think it all fits. I honestly think, like I said, the worst part about it's the honestly the acting specifically from Cameron Diaz. I didn't think Leo was super strong, um, but I thought everything else was like great. Like the things you described worked for me. I love
Mhm.
this sort of had it kind of sepia toned in it, or like a kind of greenish
Yeah, like
tone to it,
almost
and
dreamlike.
yeah, no, I didn't mind that. I thought it kind of worked for the film to sort of set you back. I know it was kind of obviously what a lot of films did back then, but I thought it certainly worked for this film in terms of setting a sort of an Irish American, uh, early 1800s or something.
Yeah,
When
sometime
was
in
it?
the 1800s. Yeah,
Some yeah. So no, I thought it was quite good.
fair enough.
Early Boston,
Yeah,
not New
yeah,
York, but
we love
yeah,
that.
like that sort of yeah.
My underappreciated is Goodfellas. No, probably like the Last Temptation of Christ. I really like, or actually Silence, because Silence maybe is probably getting a bit of a review now from audiences who like it. But at the time, Silence certainly didn't do very well, and was not received with the same sort of fanfare that either Wolf of Wall Street or The Irishman were. But yeah, it's deeply personal, has some of the best acting, has like Liam Neeson's only good performance of the last like 20 years. Andrew Garfield is, yeah, fantastic in it. It's just such a bleak story about faith and the limits
Mm.
of faith. And because again, that's Scorsese, right? Like that's his whole thing, being this Catholic guy and wrestling with his faith his whole career, and what it means is him just putting it in very more literal terms, like the suffering that the priests go through is metaphorical for the suffering that we all go through, and whether they turn from God by the end of it. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's just fascinating. And also just like I like Japan, and I like that it's in this he frames it as this like foreign alien world, um which it was to these priests, and how they viewed it. They sort of made it like a hellscape, like blackened stone with very little growth and stuff. Like, yeah, he just I think really captured that central thesis of his own life, which is struggling through suffering and still having faith in God, or at least looking to it. And it deserved, yeah, as many plaudits as any of his other films have gotten, any of his great films. It's right up there in the top of his great films. So even though it's well received, it's still underrated because it's, yeah, top level, top three at worst.
Top three, the top three best films by
Yeah. So I
Scorsese.
guess
So
Irishman
you're
and Silence
probably
are
putting
two.
it ahead of yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
probably goes Irishman, Silence, and then yeah, Goodfellas. or Taxi Driver.
I mean, fair enough. That's how you sort of took it away, but I think the larger audience were probably right on this in terms of it was an also ran movie.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, it's just funny. I just see parallels with the way you were talking about Kin Kun, or what was it?
Kundun.
What's the film? King Kundun.
King Kunta from
and
Mario.
this one, just like the way you were describing Kundun, it's like you could almost kind of lift that and talk about silence in the same way in terms.
Well, it works because it's about himself rather than about like Buddhism, which he doesn't know or care about really.
Yeah, I mean the faith, right? So because he's of the Catholic faith, but I mean in terms of the rest of the film,
yeah,
I don't know, just didn't quite. And I think there was also a decision to not have a score the entire time, silence. So there was no score. It was silence. It's like
brilliant.
I mean, that's a bit of an eye roll. Yeah, I feel like that was not even his idea. That was just like, hey, it's called silence. What if we just don't have a score?
It was the lazy composer who was like, I've got a crazy idea, Scorsese.
Yeah.
I don't do any work.
Zimmer, I was just like 3 other films, and he's like, look, I might just. What do you reckon about just no score? Silence. Let's just end this.
We've got a minute because we're bound by the Zoom.
I just want to bring up one thing that you said. It was
you got 60 seconds.
Liam Neeson's only good film.
What's the other one? What's the good one? I was being
Qui-Gon Jinn. Are you kidding?
Oh yeah, he was good. But that was more than 20 years ago. That was more than 20 years ago. So both of them.
Was it really?
Oh, yeah, 1999.
I guess you're technically correct.
And 2002.
2002.
So, yeah. All right.
I'm sure there's something else. No, the Grey.
Oh yeah, the Grey. All right. Okay, we'll do a Liam Neeson episode. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us for Hacking the Fraud. We'll be back again, probably with Nolan next.
Or no, Tarantino. I feel.
Tarantino. Yeah, Tarantino. All right. Thanks everybody. Bye for now.
All right. Ciao.